I was especially interested in Daily Harvest's approach to this. And let me ask Rachel Drori to come in. And we'll say hello. Hi, Rachel.
Ah. Hi, I can't, oh, it will not let me start my video. Okay, wait, there we go.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi, Rachel Drori, CEO and founder of Daily Harvest. It's a 4-year-old plant-based food D2C. She founded Daily Harvest in 2016 after marketing stints with fast fashion brand Sunday Fair and Gilt Group's Jet Setter brands. Hi, where are you calling us from? Are you in New York, Rachel?
I'm currently on Long Island, but generally in the West Village.
Okay. So one of the things that really attracted me to Daily Harvest and your story is especially the ways in which you've come at product development. You have an accelerated and persistent cycle of development that's grounded in sort of disrupting the usual product adoption cycle, as you explained it to me. So could you explain to us from a top level what it means to ride the production development curve?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, sadly, it's kind of a novel approach, but you know, we like to say that we create our food with the people who eat it. We foster deep connections with our community, a large base, and we co-create our food with them, not only getting them the food that they want, but also getting it to them when they want it and when it's most relevant to them. So the best way that I've found to explain this to people, because often people are like, okay, cool, but how? Is to really go back to like marketing 101. And you think about like a Rogers bell curve. You know, if you—
in fact, we happen to have an image of that bell curve with us now.
So I'm sure most of you have seen this before. It's nothing, you know, it's nothing novel, but, you know, basically the way that we work is instead of like buying an insight after early adopters have forsaken it, right? A lot of companies, a lot of product development works where something has to bubble up to a point where you can justify an investment. So you're like, okay, this has to be $100 million brand to be able to launch something new, or I have to be able to to guarantee X, Y, Z from putting something into market to verify, to justify the marketing spend and therefore the ROI. We're able to focus on the very beginning of this bell curve. So if you think about like what co-creation means, we basically partner with innovators and early adopters from the onset to create food really early on in the product cycle. And then we've built a nimble supply chain that allows us to bring these insights to market in about 8 weeks. So if you kind of look at the left side of the bell curve, so one of the things that we've spent a lot of investment on is figuring out how at the point of this 2.5%, where it's really only innovators who are talking about something, getting excited about something, how do we bring something from there to market in 8 weeks? And, you know, usually the product life cycle is pretty long. I framed it over 2 years here just to be illustrative. But what happens when you get something, when you get an insight during the innovator phase, and then you're able to get something to market in 8 weeks, as opposed to the way a lot of traditional product development works, which is like, you know, it can take 1.5 years to get something to market. What happens is you get to ride this curve up because it spurs this virtuous marketing cycle where you know, innovators and early adopters then become evangelizers and influencers, and they influence the early majority. So you kind of create this positive feedback loop or marketing or virtuous marketing cycle where you get more people into the loop, which gives you more data to be able to perfect the product, which means more people like it. And so on and so forth. You know, a lot of traditional product development kind of happens at the peak where you're like, okay, I can justify this huge expense. And by the time you've got buy-in, by the time you've got inventory, by the time you've got it stocked in store shelves, you're on your way down.
So I guess that begs 2 questions, probably more, but start with these 2. First of all, at that early stage, what sort of data is being cast off at that early stage by those innovators that you can capture? Is it different from, I mean, once you start getting higher up on that curve, we're talking about search data, we're talking about content consumption, but at that early stage, what sort of data is being cast off and how are you uniquely capturing it?
Yeah, so it really starts with those deep brand and emotional connections that we've created with a wide audience. So, we basically phenotype people's taste buds, and by gathering that information and understanding who's an innovator, who's an early adopter, and who's in the early majority of this life cycle, we're really able to understand who's at the forefront of knowing what the next big thing is based on their taste buds and nothing else. And then we take that information, things like, day part usage, ingredient consumption. We have explicit inferences like through social media, through recipe ratings. We also have these weekly in-person customer chats. So we have people in our office constantly. We never are building panels or anything like that to talk to our customers. We just have people in every week, and we have an in-house research team that allows us to have these ongoing conversations. So when it comes to speaking to innovators, we know exactly who they are, we know exactly what they want, and we're able to use that information to, as I said, create this virtuous marketing cycle up the curve.
What are those data signals? This is not data as we usually would encounter it later on in the cycle, right?
No, so this is definitely things like what are they ordering? When we phenotype taste buds, we understand what people like down to the ingredient level. And we also are able to see white space, which is really unique. So we're able to see, by taste preference or by taste affinity, what people want that we don't have, what needs we're not meeting. And it's really powerful when you can kind of look at something not as like a binary yes or no, but when you can see the bigger picture, what the white space is, and then also understand the emotional and psychological reasons why. So it's not just what they want, but it's why they want it. And there's a lot of richness that you can pull from that information that makes product development pretty straightforward.
So you're doing a lot of unstructured data analysis there at the front end. You've got to be building an engine to do this. Is this all in-house?
Yeah, so we built a proprietary platform because a lot of people will say that they have data, and you're like, okay, cool. So tell me what that means. And what happens is it often is it's so big that it's hard to make sense of, or it's unstructured. And then you have like the human component of somebody going in and saying like, well, we did these interviews or we spoke to these people and this is the output, but there's so much subjectivity there where you can remove that subjectivity and understand both structured and unstructured data at scale, which helps you understand, as I said, that the motivational and psychological reasons for decision making. It's incredibly powerful. So we built our own engine. We call it SAGE because we like food puns. And it really helps us understand all of these things, which is really powerful. And it lets us know when something changes. So if somebody likes something today and an entire group of people change their sentiment towards it tomorrow, we see that happening in our data. And then we can go, look, is it a marketing problem? Is it a supply chain problem? Is it, did something happen on, whatever you can imagine. But we have like a checklist that will then look through.
And of course, the important part of this is none of this works unless you have a supply chain that actually can be that responsive, that actually can produce within a 6 to 8 week cycle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the key to it because, the way that it traditionally works is that it just takes so long to get the supply chain pieces in order to get things in stores that you can't be nimble, you can't be responsive to customer needs. So we think about our supply chain as a tool to drive customer centricity.
So let's move into the concrete. We've got the abstract. We know there's a platform. Yep. We know there's a kind of data. Let's give an example of how this actually worked.
Yeah. So there's two questions that we kind of ask ourselves constantly. One is, what are the new audiences that we can reach with our existing portfolio when we're talking about customer acquisition, let's say. And then the second question we ask is, what needs are we not fulfilling for both our existing and potential audiences? So that's how we kind of surface this white space and understand what we're not doing. So as I said, we really start by phenotyping taste buds, understanding taste preferences, to understand what people want and to be able to speak to the right people about something that we're creating. So last fall we created, this is a good example, I think. Last fall we created we found a large group of our customers who we found were looking for something that was heartier to eat for lunch, but also wanted something that was warming. And the ingredients that they were really interested in were inspired by Indian flavors. So once we had identified that white space, we worked with the same group of customers. And it's really important that you're talking to the customers that you're creating something for, or creating it with, to dive into how we could fill this void. So we together created a new soup, which was originally named green chickpea and kale curry. Great. We launched it. It's my personal favorite soup that we
I'm a
offer.
vegan, even I know that that might not work.
I mean, it is delicious though.
Okay.
So, you know, what happens is if something is successful, to your point, it'll resonate with the people whose taste preferences we built it for. But we don't always get it 100% right because we move really quickly, but we don't think of anything as, we think of everything as iterative. So, you know, because we have this responsive supply chain that not only happens on the innovation side, but also on the iteration side. So the way that we build it is that every 6 to 8 weeks, we can bring something new to market. Every 6 to 8 weeks, we can innovate on what we already have. So, you know, as soon as something launches, we look at our data, we look at things like order rate, we look at reorder rate, we look at reviews, we, you know, dial in on our customer conversations to find out how we did. But we're speaking to people who are the people who we specifically created the SKU for. You know, and the initial reaction from our green chickpea and kale curry across reviews, our ratings, and through social was very positive. But what was interesting is that the trial rate was super low and we couldn't figure it out. So we dug a little deeper and we talked to customers to learn that the name was misleading and it didn't quite align with their taste expectations. So we renamed it. We named it green chickpea and turmeric to better align with the soup's flavor and kind of the warming Indian spices. You know,
Kale, it must be, even those of us who like kale know that it's somehow a killer. It just kills conversations when you bring in kale.
Totally. Absolutely. You know, but since that time, it's become one of our most popular items.
So what have you learned about organizing internally to make this work around sort of systematizing this and making it a process so that you know, how you organize the data gathering and the sharing within the company so that you're detecting these signals early enough so that they matter, and you're able to act on them really quickly. How does this work internally when you think that?
So it really starts with a strong research culture. You know, the ability or the culture of test, learn, optimize, and it's baked into our DNA, and that's so important. Also, having that in-house data team and analytics team and research team allows you to move so quickly through things, and we basically we have those teams, siloed isn't the right word, but kind of like the center of our universe, and every other team pulls from those resources so that we make sure we're always comparing apples to apples and we make sure that everybody's instituting the same practices. You know, and the other thing is part of that like test, learn, and optimize culture is people not being afraid to fail. It's really important when you're moving this quickly to have people be able to feel comfort and like psychological safety to take risks. And that allows us to be nimble and work really fast. So, you know, then also having our Sage tool definitely enables us to do this at scale, which is really cool. But, you know, it really comes down to that culture of agile product development from the start.
And also your staff is very much wired in. I think you have the entire Daily Harvest crew is very much wired in socially, right? So they're sort of actually actively listening to all these conversations. It's not somebody else from the social group coming in and saying, hey, this is hot on social.
Yeah, so we don't think of social as any different. It's just another portal for us to talk to our customers and to co-create. So actually, when everybody starts at Daily Harvest, we have them start following Daily Harvest and starting to talk to our customers through social. So everyone just follows our hashtag and our handle. And we almost like facilitate this interaction early on where if a customer says like, you know, we post a picture of a smoothie and somebody says they hated it, we've enabled our entire team to ask why and to understand more about it. So, you know, even before we had Sage built, which is something that, you know, took us a little while, it's really about that culture of continuous improvement.
So you customize, you have very customized product. I mean, it's very much segmented. And as you said, and I think I want you to spend a couple minutes drilling into this segmentation that you do by taste, how you do that. That you're not looking at me, the vegan, in a particular demo that I'm, 60s health, sitting in my 60s, health conscious, suddenly, have converted to vegan because I'm trying to save my heart and everything else. But you're segmenting me very differently, right?
Yeah. So, this came, I'm a marketer. I grew up through, marketing at different brands. And the thing that never made sense to me is what somebody's household income, what somebody's age, what somebody's geography had to do with their taste buds. So, that's why early on we really focused on what do people want to eat, because, my husband and I live in the same house. We have the same household income. We don't look that dissimilar. We shop at a lot of the same stores, but guess what? Our taste buds are completely different. I mean, he would eat steak exclusively if I allowed that to be a thing. And I'm like, give me the collard greens. So, when you think about a lot of those traditional segmentation, like planes, I just don't think it makes sense in a lot of businesses if you have that data. And in a world where, it's absent of that data, I think that it's important to have something to go on. But, we get so much deeper to the reason why somebody's actually going to purchase something or repurchase it. And that comes down to taste buds.
Now, we're going to go to questions in a second, but I know that we have an example of how this actually worked and of how you use the accelerated product development cycle to make, launch, and then very quickly refine your flatbread product.
Yeah. So, we
have an image of it, so we'll show people what that looked like.
Oh, great.
Walk us through.
So we launched our flatbread in April, which was super interesting time to launch a big innovation. But that's a story for another day. And, similar to the soup, we had an insight that customers wanted something crunchier for lunch. They felt like our current offerings didn't have that bite to them. And that there were certain taste affinities that we weren't meeting with our current offerings. So when we identified that white space, we came out with something that was baked and crispy, as well as, a list of key ingredients to pursue. One of them was kale. But not everything has kale in it. I don't want you guys starting to get the wrong idea about Daily Harvest. And then when we got deeper with the people who fit into that target cluster, really dug in with them to understand what they wanted, together we created flatbreads. So, they are all veg crusts that are filled with savory sauces and whole veggies. And they're really unlike all the other like cauliflower crusts out there, which are mostly made out of cornstarch and corn flour and all sorts of weird things. Ours are gluten-free because they're only made out of the good stuff. And they're built on real fruits and vegetables with nothing artificial, nothing chemical, nothing processed. And we found out that that's really what people wanted in their flatbread. But, in the traditional world of what's available in food, we also do our own manufacturing. So we're able to like create processes, which is really powerful. And then in April, we launched 3 flavors that were able to satisfy the taste preferences of our biggest clusters. And then we had some major pivots after we launched, because that's how we work. So we launched it, we had enough information that gave us conviction to launch it to market. But as you can see here, there's the kale, coriander, and kale sweet potato is, just pretend that's one image. I should have put that together. But, our first I'm going to focus on the one in the bottom, and I'm sorry you can't see actually, can I annotate? I don't know if I can. The bottom left-hand image. We found out that even though all of our stuff is gluten-free and dairy-free, because this was so similar to a pizza, we had a lot of customer confusion. So in the first week after launch, we knew that people didn't understand that we were gluten-free and dairy-free. So within 24 hours, we were able to pop this little medallion on all of our product pages so that beyond a shadow of a doubt, everybody knew that they were gluten-free and dairy-free. And there was just something about the way that our site was set up that people didn't make that connection, whereas for our other collections, they had. The other thing that we learned really quickly, and this one took a few more days, was that we didn't call our flatbreads pizza because there's an element of choice in them, right? If you want to add cheese, you should add cheese and make a pizza. If you want to add chicken, you should add chicken. If you want to add nothing, that's great too. Like, we don't judge. And we found out that people wanted pizza, but it didn't occur to people that you could put cheese on it. And this was like shocking to us because we were like, that's the obvious thing to do. And, we spoke to a small group of people up front and it was obvious to them. But, we learned really quickly that showing ads of people adding cheese, which is this image on the right, went a really long way for us. So that was our second insight from a marketing perspective, that had the entire collection grow significantly within those first few weeks. And then the third side was on the culinary side where, again, we didn't get the name quite right. We called it kale and coriander because when you taste it, that really is like the first flavor that you taste. And coriander can be polarizing, so we wanted to make sure people were getting what they wanted. But what we found out was that this was surprisingly the most popular flatbread when people tried it, but it had the slowest uptake because people weren't willing to try it because of the name. So we talked to a bunch of people who we created it for, and the surprising thing was that this appealed to a different taste affinity cluster than we originally made it from, and that was something that we were just not prepared for. Or we were prepared for it, had to react to it, but like we weren't expecting it. So we ended up talking to both the original cohort and this new cluster that was loving it. And we learned really quickly that if we called it kale sweet potato, one, they would be more likely to buy it. But it also set that expectation up really nicely where they knew what flavor that they were going to get, and then they liked it more. So ratings went through the roof. Uptake went through the roof, but like the ability to change our packaging within 6 weeks from kale coriander to kale sweet potato is not something that everyone can do. Also, having the benefit of having a D2C platform, we are in control of all of our assets. So being able to change, add a little badge that said gluten-free and dairy-free within 24 hours, and being able to change our marketing materials to add cheese, is just an example of how we move really quickly. And then the next step is we started with 3 flatbreads, but we really quickly saw that there were people who want flatbreads that the flavors that we launched didn't appeal to. So we have 2 more coming out on August 6th, and we're really excited about it.
Lightning fast iteration. That's a fascinating story. So I want to make sure we're running long, but I want to make sure that we get our questions in. Lisa, go ahead.
We do have some, but first I have to say that Eric Tsai and Tony Orelli have a big thumbs up to steak. They want steak exclusively, so keep that in mind. But Shannon Hampton has a question for you guys. Shannon, for you.
Yes. So just curious, how do you balance innovation and creativity with consumer insights and data to drive the product development process? Sometimes consumers don't know what they want or would like until you present something to them. Yep. And what I'm finding struggling with our process is we're swinging heavy one way or the other, right? So it's like we're being so creative and so innovative that customers are having trouble connecting, or we're really honed in on what the consumer wants, but we're kind of putting ourselves in a box.
Yeah, so I'll say 2 things there. One, I think it is the focus on innovators to understand what's next. Mm-hmm. They're really good at kind of sniffing out what those next big, I hate calling them trends because I don't think food is necessarily trendy, but there are some trends in food, so I'll just leave it there. Kind of understanding what those next things are, like, that's one piece of it. And the other piece is, the 2 shouldn't be separate. Our marketing team works hand in hand with our data team. And, when we call our data, we're careful not to be too formulaic or too dogmatic about the data that we see. We use them as inferences that help us build hypotheses, and then we test those hypotheses. So, if we understand that somebody wants something like crunchy with Indian spice, or I just confused the soup and the flatbread, but, warm with Indian spice for the soup, we don't necessarily know what that's going to be. Is that a soup? Is it a harvest bowl? Is it something we never thought of? Is it a latte? Like there's 100 different things that could fit that bill. But it really comes into this idea where, you know, our chefs and our nutritionists come together and they're like, okay, here's like 97 options. And then we bring it back to the people who we've created the food for. And we say, which is most appealing to you? So they work hand in hand.
Rachel, we are running long and this was fascinating. Thank you so much, Rachel Drori.
Of course, thank you.